Hello and welcome to the Walk Off, everybody. I'm Scott Belford, joined as always by the best co-host in the biz, Adam Mack. This is a Monday morning mailbag on a Tuesday afternoon, and holy crap, did we ever get a lot of interaction over the last week, specifically over Roki Sasaki, missing out on him, and the big Anthony Santander signing yesterday. So we are going to get to as many as your comments if possible. But we're talking hundreds and hundreds here, and we're going to be able to get to probably less than 10. So we're doing our best. We're combing through YouTube. We're taking DMs from Twitter and Instagram at Walk Off Podcast on Twitter, The Walk Off Podcast on Blue Sky, The Walk Off Podcast on Instagram, and we're going to try and grab as many YouTube comments as possible. Now, one comment from the Discord last week, and I think it was Metal Manic, but I'm not sure. So if it's not, well, take credit, Metal Manic. There you go. You're getting one in. It's not even yours. But he was like, hey, just out of curiosity, why is it that Patreon is always the second chunk of questions? Is it to try and engage the public and then get to Patreon and then tease that there's more? And I said, Adam and I have put zero thought into this. Literally none. And the order is the order because it's the order we've always done. Just the first time we ever did it, this was the order: Twitter into Patreon into YouTube, and it stuck. But talk about a twist here, Adam. We're going to start with Patreon here, which is the
Wow.
other way you get your question or comment in. The
Wild.
Patreon bump for a measly $4 a month. And supporting the channel, you get your comment or question in every single time. You also get instant access to all of our interviews, which we got a bunch coming up here. We got Jack Jolly Olive from John Boy coming and joining us tomorrow. We should have that released by the evening tomorrow. We've got Top Prospect and very possible fourth outfielder for the Blue Jays this year, and Alan Roden. If he doesn't break with the team, he's probably going to get his MLB debut this year. We're talking with Josh Kasevich on Thursday, Riley Terada, both a couple of AAA guys on the verge here. And we also are sitting down with Rob Wong tomorrow night, that you can expect for the public on Thursday morning. So there you go. All sorts of reasons to jump on Patreon. And on that, let's dive in, Mr. Mac.
All I
We're
can think, sorry, I have a intrusive thought that I can't get out of my head, so apologies. First of all, Metal Manic. Fun fact, every time I read the username in my head, it's pronounced Metal Maniac.
ah,
So I just see it and that's how it's pronounced in my head. The idea of us doing Patreon at the end, for me, and I'm totally bluffing here, has just been a save the best for last factor. And I'm
right,
surprised you
right.
didn't pull that one out of your butt, Scott. Um, I was thinking, remember those old Smarties commercials, like save the red ones for last?
Mm-hmm.
You ever do
When you
that
eat
as a
your
kid?
Smarties, do you eat the red ones last?
Exactly. When you read your mailbag, do you read the Patreon last? It's not as catchy of a jingle, but
It's not.
it'd still go on a t-shirt somewhere. Uh, you like Smarties? M&Ms?
I, uh, you know what? Not my favorite either way, but I do lean toward M&Ms because
Oh, gross.
my apologies, I'm a peanut guy. They put the peanuts in
Mm.
there
Well,
and
this
the
is a
candy
great
coated
point, Scott.
chocolate.
This is a great point. Why doesn't Smarties do a peanut Smartie?
Dropping the
Every
ball.
time I go to the grocery store, Oreo, the perfect cookie that they made absolutely 10 out of 10 on their first try,
Hmm.
has nothing but new
Adapting
varieties.
constantly to worse.
They're fucking with the batter. It's like, hey, how about extra cream? No, that's too much. How about less cream? No, you had the recipe right. They're like, how about we make it apple pie flavored? What? No, I don't want this. But
Thins.
Smarties is
What
just
about
like
thins? What about the
pardon true.
thins, eh? Like those,
No,
just
no,
come on,
no.
give me
I
an
don't want
actual
I don't
size
want
cookie.
minis. I don't want thins. I just have to eat more of them. Let's no. Smarties, here's how I eat my Smarties. I don't go by color, but what I do is I eat them like spits. like
Mm,
sunflower seeds. You know, you
right. You
split
spit the
a
shells
sunflower
out.
seed open.
Right.
Well, I don't split the Smartie shells out, no. But I pop one in my mouth. I let the chocolate warm up on my tongue. This is
Mm.
gross for anybody. I'm not going to do a visual of this. Don't worry. But I let it melt in my mouth, and then I stand it upright between my teeth, my front teeth, and I split it like a beaver chewing bark off a log. And I just split the candy shell right in two, like it's a sunflower seed. And then I have all that warm milk chocolate that melted in my mouth to enjoy. So that's how I eat my Smarties. I don't know. I've been doing it since I was 10, and I will not stop. Every Halloween, I look forward to the little Smarties bags almost more than anything. I said bags, boxes. Okay, there you go. That was the intrusive thought that I couldn't get out of my head, and thanks for humoring me. So,
Sometimes you got to get that candy stuff off your brain, right? Like you're just like, I've got brain candy. Here it is. Here's my thoughts on Smarties, M&Ms. This is how we start. This is how most people start baseball podcasts.
it's just how most people start their day. I don't know why I didn't mention this. Sitting literally on my desk in front of me is a stocking stuffer from Christmas that I got for my wife of Reese's Pieces in a candy
Ooh,
cane form. Where do you stand on Reese's Pieces? Better
big,
than the cups?
big fan, big fan. Listen, I already told you, peanuts in the M&Ms.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that's better than that is squishing those peanuts up, baby. Make it a butter. Give me a butter.
Give me the butter, baby. All right. So it goes
Peanuts,
Reese's
by the
Pieces,
way,
peanut M&Ms, regular M&Ms, Smarties. All
there you
right.
go.
There we go.
Peanuts, not a nut, by the way, a legume.
There you go.
Yeah. All right.
Interesting.
Well, now that we have enlightened everyone on really all sorts of important facets of life, let's dive into these questions and comments. We're going to start
We
with
have
one from
to.
Chooch. We're going to start with one from Choocheroo that we're
Okay.
not diving too much into, but when we started the podcast yesterday, we were kind of talking about the international free agent bonus pool, how much the Jays had given up to bolster that pool in hopes of getting Roki Sasaki, and that now they lost out on some of the biggest international free agents because they kind of were sitting on the money. And now what we asked was basically, does this money need to be spent now or can it roll over? Both of us figured that it had to be spent now, but we weren't 100% sure. And this is why we turned to the grounds crew. You folks, oh my God, the amount of you out there that just know every little nugget of baseball knowledge, it's freaking mind blowing sometimes, especially when it comes to like CBA shit and rules. Like, tip of the hat to you folks keeping us in the know. So Chucharu goes, FYI, no. International bonus pools in Major League Baseball expire at the end of each signing period and cannot be rolled over. Teams must use their allotment of bonus pool money during the signing period or lose it. So there you go. We're in the know.
There we go. Appreciate
By the
it.
way, before we dive into more, I will say this. We had many, many questions and comments about how negative we were yesterday about the Anthony Santander signing, which to a level, Adam, honestly, I was surprised because I was like, I don't remember being negative. I know you had the moment there where you used the term, can I put some cold water on it, which rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and bringing up his age and the term. But listen, this
How
also,
dare I? How
how
dare
dare
I?
you?
How
How
dare
dare you?
I have been burned by Vernon Wells as a young child and still hold like a PTSD from that contract? Although we did manage to get out from under that. But that was a
Listen,
bad contract.
and this is the thing, right? Is that unfortunately, if you are a hard black or white person and you just need a definitive, this is good or this is bad, I'm not going to lie to you. We're probably not the podcast for you. Unfortunately, we kind of live in this world of gray, and Adam's not going to be able to help himself but point out either the good things in a bad transaction or the bad things in a good transaction, and it's because they exist. And listen,
I've defended agents many a time on long toss.
yes,
The Fence Sitters was the original name for this podcast.
Right, right. The fence
Another
sitters.
one was Devil's Advocate. That one not as popular. I tried Anthony Bass's Advocate, also not a popular one. Um,
So let's start with this. Anthony
okay.
Santander. Great signing. Especially because we didn't know as we
We didn't know the dollar figure.
this news broke the minute we were hitting record. Like Adam and I were sitting down to do MLB Mondays, bonus content for Patreon, and then this news broke. Like Jeff Passan, it had the 1 minute mark on
Mhm.
Twitter. The money hadn't been talked about yet. All we knew was that Anthony Santander was a Blue Jay for 5 years. And obviously, at 30 years old, there's always going to be risk attached to that. Now, as we found out, the money, which turned out to be $90 million, 92.5 to be exact, and then with deferrals, you put that total through the weird inflation equation that they got, and it spits out $14 million against the CBT per year. And it seems like a fucking bargain, honestly, especially when you find out that there's an opt out after that third year, an opt out that if this team sucks, Santander is probably going to take because at 33 years old, there's a very likely possibility if he doesn't completely faceplant and fall flat here in Toronto, that at 33 years old, he can still go out and make $28 million over the 2 years and not be on a bad team. So
Yeah.
I think this was a great deal. This is the first time the Blue Jays have got a switch hitter worth his weight in so long. Oh my God. Now, was it negative to say that this team needs more done? I don't know. Maybe. It's my honest feeling, though. Like, I truly do believe this team, when you compare them against the rest of the AL East, is still fighting it out for the third best team. And I don't want that.
Yeah.
If at the absolute worst, Adam, I want to be easily the third best team.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, another bat would be nice. I don't think it's necessary. Like another pitcher, I think is necessary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so do I. I think a pitcher and one more bat. I mean, honestly, Jurickson Profar would fit so well on this team if they can get him at the right term and money,
Yeah,
which I know is a lot of players that are still available right now, but he's
yeah,
another switch hitter. He's got a great on base percentage, and I know that he had a career year last year, which is always a dangerous game to play for a 31-year-old. But if you can bring in Jurickson Profar on, let's say, a 3-year deal with a opt out after one, however you want to frame it. Okay, this is a guy who plays a bad left field. He's not a great fielder, but my goodness, can you imagine Jurickson Profar into Bo Bichette, into Vladimir Guerrero Jr., into Anthony Santander? Like, that's a pretty solid 1, 2, 3, 4. You've got
don't forget about George Springer leading off.
this is the thing. I love the idea of pushing George down the lineup. I mean, can he hit eighth? Can we get him in that
Agreed.
eight hole? Getting all the pressure off him. You know what? If George can sit in that number 7 or 8 hole and just sit on fastballs and try and hit 25 to 30 bombs at the bottom end of this batting order, I'm all for it. I think that's great. Now, do I
Yeah,
want to see George Springer take more at bats than any person on this team? Call me a negative asshole if you want. I do not and cannot handle another season of that. So,
no.
uh, yeah, there's more to do. Anyways, let's get into mailbag here. We're getting all over the place here. Starting with Patreon. This is from Wyatt G. He says, "Hey fellas, just wanted to give you guys props for being content creators and doing all you do. Jays fans are driving me nuts." So, by the way, that sentence, Jays fans are driving me nuts. There are 3 different kind of sides of Blue Jays fans right now. There's the I'm completely miserable. I'm actually rooting against this team. I hate the front office so bad. I would rather see this team fail than succeed just in
Mhm.
the hopes of
Just to
getting
prove a
this front
point.
office out.
Right.
There's the hopeful fans that are like, listen, we're stuck with Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro. It's kind of just you go through the 5 steps and you hit acceptance. That's kind of this
Hmm.
one, right?
Yeah.
They've accepted where we're at. This is kind of where I'm at, right? I'm still hoping that this team is a good team to watch. I think that there's still hope if they add the right pieces that this is a team that can at least contend to be in the playoffs. Now, once the playoffs hit, who knows? But we're
Hmm.
well aware of the crapshoot the playoffs can be in baseball. And you know
Indeed.
what? We're in the American League. We don't need to worry about the Dodgers until the World Series. And I think if some crazy, fucked up, unbelievable, amazing, wonderful thing happens, and this is the scenario, and they're just not good enough against the Dodgers, I think most of us will take that as a win, right? And then the third category of Jays fans are the very small minority of people who, for some crazy reason, still believe in Ross Atkins. I know, you know
Oh.
who I want to
Ross
get back
Atkins'
on?
family, you mean? The Shapiros?
Ross Atkins family, and Craig Ballard.
Oh, I miss
Love
Craig.
Craig, of course, long time regular on Long Toss, and I'll shoot him a text here and maybe see if we can get him on the
Hmm.
podcast. It's been too long.
Indeed.
But
Yeah.
those are the three categories of people. So going back here, he goes, "Hey fellas, props on what you do, blah blah. Jays fans are driving me nuts. First, they are mad that we can't land any free agents and always finish second in signings. Then we finally get a guy and they are mad because they said we overpaid for him. We have to overpay for free agents to get them here. It's part of being the only Canadian team in baseball. Like, what the hell do they want? I truly believe people just love to hate and be miserable. You don't like it? Then go cheer for the Dodgers like all the other bandwagon jumpers. Side note, old Yankee fans are worse than new Dodgers fans because they are in the NL and we don't have to see them 14 times a year. God, I hate the Yankees." Strong finish here, Wyatt.
I would say it's a good point about the Yankees are still worse because we have to face them more often.
Mm-hmm.
But my pushback to that is when it comes to the fans still, just on a day-to-day, minding my own business. I'm at the grocery store, I'm at the hockey rink, I'm at the mall. Way more Dodgers hats
Yes.
than Yankees hats.
Yes.
Oh, there's parents on my kids' hockey team, Dodgers hats.
Oh,
I'm like,
they've become the new
Dodgers?
vanity fan. They're a vanity
Yeah.
fan, right?
I'm
Look at
like,
me.
oh, Dodgers, really? And then there's always the fuck, oh, I know. No, I've been a fan since before Shohei, though. I grew up a Dodgers fan. Like, sure.
Mm.
Really? You probably also have a Kansas City Chiefs hat at home, too. Like, oh, I've been a fan since before Mahomes. Oh, really? Okay.
Name the
Sure.
quarterback before Mahomes, then.
Right. Where's your Alex Smith jersey? Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. It's yeah, I don't know. It's
And you know what?
whatever. They're both terrible. It's like we're picking, you
We
know.
are. And I will
It's
push back a little bit here. I think Jays fans are just extremely frustrated with this offseason in this front office. And so sometimes, and maybe that's why we didn't come across sunny enough and excited enough when we were delivering the Anthony Santander news and discussing it, right? Is that there is a lot of hurt feelings
mhm.
from the misses and the way that this front office has operated so far in the offseason. So,
Indeed.
it's tough to just like compartmentalize, move your negative feelings over here, take a objective look at what happened and not let those bleed into each other, right?
Yep.
And I mean, we just talked about it. When you break down that Anthony Santander deal, I mean, Wyatt says we have to overpay for free agents to get them here. This is a scenario I truly don't believe it was an overpay. Like, I really
Yeah.
do think that outside of maybe needing to go that fifth year, I don't know, man. It doesn't seem like a bad deal to me. And I could be full of shit. I know
Hmm.
I've been chatting with some good some good pals that have pushed back against that, and they're talking about long term. This could be really devastating. But I kind of touched on it off the top. I really don't think this is an unmovable contract. And unless he completely skewers his value and falls on his face, even if the worst happens, and by the way, when I say the worst, I envision a rebuild as the worst possible scenario here, even if the bright side is that, dear God, hopefully that means Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins are gone and we can
Mhm.
start with a fresh slate. But even if that happens, worst case scenario, I think Santander is still movable, especially with that opt out, right? I don't know. Drop your comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know how everyone else is feeling about Santander and the deal, especially now that all the details have come out about the deferrals and the overall CBT AAV being 14 million. I mean, for a guy who's going to hit 30 bombs for the next 2 to 3 years, this it's exactly what this team needed.
Yeah, definitely what we needed. So, woohoo.
Hey, Scott and Adam, question for Mailbag. This is also from Patreon from Matt Finley. He goes, what would you give for Santander to launch a home run in his first at bat versus Sasaki this season?
It'd be cool.
I don't know what I would give, but I would be pretty darn excited to be able to watch that happen. Anthony Santander, by the way, friend of the show, Chris Black at Down to Black on Twitter, has an incredible thread about Santander, as he does many times with many players where he deep dives on them. But Anthony Santander hits more home runs off pitches outside the strike zone than anyone else in Major League Baseball.
Interesting.
So those pitchers that kind of nibble around the corners are big into splitters or stuff that dives down and away.
Hmm.
He's the guy who actually can get the bat around on it. Tony
There you go.
Barrels, excited to have
Tony,
him.
Tony Barrels. We play the Dodgers in LA August 8th, 9th, and 10th.
Boy, oh boy, love how
Uh,
long we got to wait to play the Dodgers. I'm all
we
right
might be
with
out of the
that.
playoffs by then, buddy.
That's right. Hopefully not.
We might be watching Bichette play for the Dodgers by then. We might be excited to see that game because we're excited to watch Bo Bichette again.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah.
Sticking with Patreon, this is from Mish Beer. And she goes, howling. And then in quote, she goes, is it okay if I pour some water on this? Would you be Adam Mac Attack if you didn't? Going to
What is
Johnny here.
hold on? Is there a? I can't think of an example right now, but this is probably just because of the terrible state of the Blue Jays right now. Um, where I did the opposite, where I did the
Oh,
reverse.
yeah.
I
I can't
feel
think
like
of
I
a.
was high on Varsho when everybody was like miserable about the Moreno trade.
Yeah,
I
we
feel
both
like I
were.
was reverse Santandering that one, right?
Hmm.
I know you were because you were like high on
Yeah.
Varsho before we even traded him, like the summer
Yeah.
before he
No,
was on
he's
your
who I
radar.
wanted. I didn't
Yeah.
particularly want to give up the number one draft or the number one prospect in all of baseball for him, but
Yeah.
the past is the past.
Elite Gold Glove can fill in at catcher. He
Yeah.
won't, but could if we needed him to.
You know what's exciting
Yeah.
about Santander, dude, is that
Hmm.
44 home runs last year, even if you drop his production by 33%, this is still a freaking 30 home run hitter on this team, a team that has been without a cleanup hitter for 2 years. Like, it's exciting, man. I'm pumped.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
All right, this is from Johnny, also in Patreon. He goes, I'm sure I'm not alone, but I just can't find it in me to be excited about Santander. I have a sinking feeling this is going to turn out like the Springer deal. That's probably just my total distrust in the front office talking. I'm sorry. Sad face. So, I mean,
Yeah, no, that's where I'm at too. I admit that that's where I'm at, and I'm aware that that's probably not a fair place to be. And
No.
here's my advice to anybody else who's in this boat with us is that's all the more reason to be excited right now. Because
Yeah.
that's the only thing we have to point to with George Springer right now is at least the first year was fun. So we might as well enjoy the first year of Santander because he's going to be
Hmm.
good this year. Like
Yes.
barring bad tacos, he'll be
Yeah.
good this year.
Which is the other
Um,
thing that was disappointing about Springer is that, yeah, he was so good in that first year, but he only played 78 games, right?
right. So let's enjoy him while he's good. And then 5 years from now, if he's still good, bonus. And if he's not, we could say, hey, at least 2025, he helped us get to 79 wins. That was a lot better than 60.
I will say this though, for there listen, nobody is the same. There is no two humans that bodies react the exact same, and age is a number, and there's a variance on how it affects everybody. And I mean, Jose Batista and Edwin Encarnacion are great examples of defying age until they were like 35, right? There are those guys. Santander, also a late bloomer, right? He was a dude who the Orioles wound up getting in the Rule 5 draft out of high A, and he stuck with the team. Of course, this was when they were rebuilding and losing 110 games in a season. But nonetheless, this is a dude who has really become a great hitter. And in a league where switch hitting has become such an anomaly, he does it very well from both sides of the plate. And you know what? Again, yes, we can always point to George Springer. We can point to Vernon Wells. We can point to these bad contracts with guys in their 30s. But we can also point to the dudes who did it well, right? Even Josh Donaldson was a late bloomer and a guy who at 30 and 31 really, really lifted this team up. So, I mean, get excited, be excited. I, this team with a few more ads is worth being excited about. And the deferrals is a really interesting little snag in this whole thing because it makes you feel like this organization is probably going to spend more money. They're not done yet. Or that at least they better frickin' not be. And again,
Jose,
if we were in the AL Central, Adam, I wouldn't be acting like this. But you got to compare this lineup to the Orioles and the Yankees and the Red Sox. And we might be able to go toe to toe with the Red Sox right now, but the other two feel a full head above us.
no, truly. I guess the best news for the Blue Jays is the quiet off season the Red Sox have had.
Mm-hmm.
Because as much as we've missed out on some big names, they've also been tied to
Some
some
big
big trades and
names.
some big signings that
I
haven't
mean, they
necessarily
did
happened
they
yet.
did make that trade for Garrett Crochet, so their
Yep.
pitching staff is better, but they have missed out on
They were
some.
tied to Arenado and
Yeah.
they were, I mean, if you ask a Red Sox fan, they were in on Juan Soto too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just before we move on, Jose Batista, first year getting MVP votes, 29 years old. Last year getting MVP votes, 34 years old.
Yep.
Edwin Encarnacion, same thing. MVP votes as a 29-year-old every year until he was a 34-year-old. So, yeah, there could be the first half of his 30s are pretty decent still, but
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is if the first 3 years of his tenure in Toronto are good, he's gonna opt out.
yeah, very well could. Well, especially like even just with the general inflation of the market, right? Like there's that
Mm-hmm.
potential too, where it's like, well, just the going rate for a aging slugger is more than the 28 I would still get here. So,
Sticking with
indeed.
Patreon, and we do have quite a few in Patreon here, so I am trying to get through them so we can get to the public here. Stick with me. Debit Snow Time Baby says, as a diversion from Blue Jays pain, this, by the way, was before the Santander signing. So just so you don't all think that everyone is sitting here crying just after Santander, like this team is much better now than it was 30 hours ago, right? And it's on the right, it's on the right direction. So this is from Deb. She goes, as a diversion from Blue Jays pain, my question for Mailbag, what are your thoughts on the Rays ballpark situation for 2025 season and how might that impact the Jays when we play them? So if you missed it, obviously Tropicana Field is not playable this season after the hurricane there. It tore the roof off of it and the damages were to a level that they couldn't get it redone in time for the season. And on top of that, with all the question marks surrounding the Rays and where they're going to be in their new stadium, and the fact that their new stadium was approved in downtown St. Pete, going to build a 30,000 seat baseball stadium, and St. Pete canceled that. Their city council squashed that deal. And so the Rays are in rough, dude.
I have a question for you. How did you won't know this? Sorry, I'm assuming you won't know this just because you're a bozo like I am. Um, how does insurance work on a property like not there's a more specific question coming, I promise. I'm just fat and out of breath, okay? How does insurance work on a property like that, like in a situation like this? So if a meteor hit the Rogers Center and it was and we had meteor insurance, um, for whatever reason, we would rebuild it or repair it with the money from insurance, right? Um, but in a situation like the Trop, where they were like, well, we wanted to move anyway. Like, we don't want to, whatever. I guess what I'm getting at is like, like the forest fires that we always have every year, they're going on in LA right now. Like, when you do get insurance, I don't know. I'm just under the impression that, like, if you're, I think it was like Lytton, BC, like burned to the ground, right? Like the whole town was like wiped off the face of the earth last summer or 2 summers ago. And they're going to get insurance money, but they have to rebuild their home there. They don't just like get a payout and be like, here's $500,000 for your home you lost. Now go move to Kelowna and build something, right? It's like, no, you have to like replace that property. Like, that's how that works. So how does that work for the Trop? Like, they don't just get to be like, well, here's $80 million towards your new stadium in St. Pete, right? Like, are they going to just be
I've
forced to rebuild the Trop and then
I've
leave?
I've never wanted the answer to one of your questions more than right now, but you were correct in your assessment that I too am just a bozo who does not know the answer to this.
This is
I,
a
I,
valid
I
question, though, right? Like, this is
it's
not
a
like
valid
a,
question. I was wondering too, like, you know how when you crash your car and then the insurance company gets you a rental? Like, are they
yeah.
covering the cost of renting George Steinbrenner Field from the Yankees in Tampa? Like, is that,
Yeah.
which is, by the way, where the Rays are going to be playing, is at George Steinbrenner
Yes.
Field.
Way
That
to
is
bring it all back.
that's the spring training facility of the New York Yankees, and it is in Florida. So in Tampa Bay. So at least the team stays in Tampa, because there were all those rumors that maybe they wind up at Oakland Coliseum or at the Big O in Montreal or one of those other sites where there's a field. And no, they're managing to stay in Tampa, which is good news for the Rays and their players and their families. Personally, I think the Rays are going to be a last place team this year. I could be wrong. And, all the Jays fans, we could wind up just sitting here watching this team miss completely. But I'm going to put on a happy face and hope that, they can continue to build on what they've already done, which is bolster the bullpen, made this lack of cleanup hitter problem go away. If we can add another guy who can maybe play some lead off and
Mm-hmm.
get another starting pitcher. This team isn't that bad off, right? Like a Jack Flaherty and a Jurickson Profar would go a long way here, and the lineup would look substantially different. Um, yeah, more or less, I think that it's going to affect the Blue Jays almost not at all, outside of they're going to be playing in a smaller stadium. So it's going to feel like there's more fans there for the Rays than there normally is.
Yeah, I guess Full House, right?
Hmm. This is I'm all over the place here, folks, and I'm sorry. We are going to get back to mailbag in 1 second, but I wanted to ask, and folks, drop your comments below here because say the Blue Jays do get a Jurickson Profar or a Pete Alonso or frick, even a Bregman. Just one of those guys, all of a sudden, that leaves one spot, I'm fairly certain. One spot for Will Wagner, Joey Loperfido, Addison Barger, Ernie Clement, Leo Jimenez, Davis Schneider, Jonathan Clase. And on top of that, there's Buffalo guys that are pushing pretty hard too. I mean, we're talking with Alan Roden. Uh, all of us are well aware of Aralvis Martinez and the power he shows. Josh Kasevich is coming on the show. Even guys like former friend of the show, Will Robertson, right? He's a big lefty who's been hitting bombs in AAA, who's probably ready for a spot on the team. Riley Terrata is another. Damiano Parmigiani, all of
Hmm.
these friends of the show, but all of these guys, I mean, it's a glut of guys that even with them all in AAA aren't going to have enough at bats. It feels like there's got to be a trade coming. So I know we keep talking about all these free agent options like Alonso, like Profar, like Bregman, Flaherty, all of this. But maybe this team fills some stuff out after moving on from some of these guys. And I don't know what the value is of a Will Wagner or an Addison Barger or an Ernie Clement or a Leo Jimenez, but there is value. These guys aren't duds. I'm
Hmm.
not saying that they're going to get a huge return, but this isn't some roll of the dice lottery ticket
Yeah, yeah,
enable.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Not really contributing to this mailbag here, you and I, with stuff like this. We're just like stating stuff and then moving on to the next. I had nowhere to go with that. I'm like, that's a thing, maybe. Anyways,
Oh man, we're just comedians throwing out fucking unfleshed premises right now.
truly, this is where we're at. Okay. Last couple Patreon, and then we'll get into the public comments
You
here.
know, when you go
This
to the drive-through and the line's real long, that sucks, eh? I don't have anything for it, but I
I don't
just
have anything
thought.
for it, but moving on.
Hmm.
This one is from Patreon as well. Art Vandalay writes, and of course, we're all aware of
Nice.
Arthur Vandalay of Vandalay
Yeah.
Industries. He goes,
Importer,
thanks for
exporter.
posting. And this was about my Saturday morning. You were still sleeping, buddy. And of course, the Roki Sasaki news had dropped on the Friday night, and I was up before my wife. I was up early and I was just sitting there stewing. And I was just like, I got to do something. So I laid down. Pretty much, it was just 12 minutes of me
Hmm.
incoherently ranting about this front office and the Roki Sasaki of it all. And
Hmm.
that's what this is about. So he goes, thanks for posting, Scott. It's our fault for thinking that we had a remote chance of landing Sasaki. Imagine visiting Toronto in January and then going to California. Which would you pick?
Hey, ours wasn't
Well,
burning down.
yeah. And then last but not least, Ian Elliott says, thanks for the group therapy session. That was also about that little video I did. By the way, Ian, SCTI,
Hey, yep.
long time friend of the show. He may be, and I don't know for sure, but he's definitely one of the first 10 Patreon members we ever had, I
Oh
think.
yeah. Yeah.
Happy birthday. It was his birthday yesterday. So
Happy
SCTI,
belated birthday.
a very happy belated birthday from the walk off. Yeah. If you're in Discord or no SCTI, drop him a happy birthday.
There you go.
Okay, going to Twitter. We are now at the public portion. This one is
Hey.
from Mike in California. He DM'd us over Twitter. He goes, hello, Scott and Adam. Mailbag submission. The Dodgers currently have $1.01 billion worth of deferred money on the books. It's actually higher than that now. This message was from 5 days ago. um, I have to imagine this is going to lead to a lockout once the CBA comes up in 2026. Do you guys think that when these contracts are looked at in the future, it will be a breaking point that ultimately set the players back? I have to imagine the owners outside of New York and LA will be looking to set a cap, getting rid and modifying deferments. On a side note, it's amazing how not long ago Jays fans, players, agents begged the Jays to spend money. Boris is literally calling the Jays out, saying we have the blue flu. And we sit here today where players will literally not accept any of the money offered by the Jays. I mean, Santander did. This was before the Santander signing, so I get his comment. So where are you at, Adam? Do you think that this is all leading up to a fairly major lockout slash strike in 2026? Do you think that this CBA is going to be a big one coming up, the negotiations?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I think there's just so much. I think we're gonna lose games in 2027 for sure.
So do I.
I think that's a part of it. I think the Sasaki of it all, we're gonna have an international draft. I think.
Yes. I think Sasaki was the last straw, especially with all of the rumors around the tampering and how many organizations were upset with the Dodgers. There were over 10, it is stated by a
That filed
anonymous source.
complaints.
Like that's a lot. That's a lot of organizations going to the league being like, we want this investigated. And of course, the league doesn't give a shit because they love the Dodgers. So they were like, made 2 phone calls and were like, it seems fine here. I don't know. But
Well, I mean, even the thing of like, oh, was this like a is there a wink wink handshake deal of like, hey, like come to us and don't worry, once this deal's over, we'll give you X amount in 5 years, kind of a thing, right? Like, of course that's not going to be a paper trail,
yeah.
right? Like,
No, it's true. And this is
there's
where,
nothing to find. Doesn't mean the conversations didn't happen. Doesn't mean, you know,
and listen, the
ah,
international free agent stuff is very different with the Pacific Rim players, right? Like these players that are coming out of South Korea and
they're
coming
full
out of
grown adults
Japan,
for one.
they're full grown. This is the thing, right? The reason why this international free agency needs to stop or needs to be reinvented is the Dominicans and the Venezuelans and the Latin American players that are being taken advantage of and signed at 14 years old on handshake deals
Mhm,
and just getting jerked around by these billion-dollar teams that just can abuse these kids. So there
mhm.
needs to be a different set of circumstances as to how they become the property of these organizations. I probably shouldn't call it property, but assets,
Yeah,
let's say assets, right?
yeah.
Uh, and I think that's going to be a real sticking point because if you remember the whole holdup last CBA, where the owners locked out the players, and then the season was started two weeks late.
Mhm.
The reason for this was because of the international free agency and they were trying to get some sort of draft into place. They finally came to an agreement that we're going to work on this over the next few months. If it doesn't happen, we'll go back to the old ways and then we don't lose. Because remember, they were talking about not getting the draft picks when there's
Qualifying,
the qualifying
qualifying offer,
offers,
right?
right? It
Yeah.
would be partly they would get rid of that if there was a
Hmm.
new draft system. Never came
Hmm.
into play. And I
Hmm.
think that 2026 time's up. I think that we're going to miss some of the season, hopefully not the whole thing, but
I think all of it though, like I think there's like more than just those. Like there's so many other topics to also
mhm.
be upset about, like the way the TV rights deals are done independently. And I know Major League Baseball wants to do more of a collective option there and balance things out, but then that complicates things of like revenue sharing, right? Which is like one of the factors that allows the Dodgers to spend this kind of money is because they have an exceptional TV broadcast deal with Comcast, whereas other teams are watching their local broadcaster go bankrupt and receiving $0 from like a local broadcast deal that was signed in the past. So like, there's just a lot of things that need to be owner to owner worked out. Never mind
Mm-hmm.
owner to player worked out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so a lot of concessions need to be made there. Um, yeah, it's
It could suck. It
it's going
could
to be
suck.
messy.
Like there
I
could
don't
be
know
a
if we'll lose a whole season, but
I
also
hope
I
not.
wouldn't be surprised if we did, man. Like, I don't know.
Which is too bad because baseball, it took so long for them to recover from that 94 strike. Like we're
Well,
talking decades. I mean, the steroid home run shit really helped put them back on
mm-hmm,
the map, but then there was such a bitter taste in everyone's mouth after the whole
mm-hmm,
steroid thing blew up, right? So
yeah.
I don't know if I'm Rob Manfred, I am literally doing everything in my power to avoid such a scenario. But I almost am at the point where I don't think it's avoidable. Drop your comments below. Where do you think this CBA negotiation is going to go in a year and a half? Like, is this going to be a 1994 repeat? I worry it might be. Moving
Maybe,
on. Oh,
maybe
sorry.
just like how the last lockout like that cost the Expos their franchise. Maybe on the other side of this lockout, the Dodgers have to move. Maybe it totally sucks the wind out of their sails,
Yeah.
and the Dodgers have to move to like Nashville.
Okay. Mike wrote in, different Mike from California, Mike. This is an Ontario Mike. He goes, this Santander deal, boys, really lovely. They've done a good job with this. Fair play. I like it. I'm with them.
There you
I
go.
think that after all the information came out, looked pretty good for them. I miss
Yep.
Teoscar Hernandez on Twitter. That's his handle. Wrote in. He goes, question, comment for mailbag. I think the Vladdy extension should be simple. We've seen that some players just don't want to play in Canada, and that's fine. This guy is a homegrown superstar who loves playing in Toronto. He should fill the seats and be a reason for other guys to take a second look up north. In terms of money, I think 14 over 420 or 13 over 455 gets it done. 35 million AAV locking him up pretty much for his whole career. 35 AAV is 6.5 million more than his arbitration hearing for this season. So take away a Jimmy Garcia or a Chad Green plus Nathan Luke's kind of combo, and he's around to keep us relevant and competing for a playoff spot. Yeah, I think those numbers are actually probably what Vladdy's camp is around. I've heard speculation it's 450 to 5.
Yeah, I mean, we go back and forth on guessing numbers. I think the
Yeah.
only thing that does get it done is you sit down at the table with a blank check and you just slide it over to him and you go, what's it going to take?
Hmm.
And then whatever he signs or whatever number he fills in, you just are willing to say yes to it or you're not. But otherwise, I think
Well,
he's just going to free agency. He's got to test it out. Even if,
it was real.
oh, cool. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say I was listening to Blair and Barker yesterday night, and they were saying pretty much what you were getting into is that
Yeah.
he, as Toronto fans, we probably shouldn't even panic if he goes to free agency because this front office has made it very clear they're prepared to spend a ridiculous amount of money, and it might actually work out in Toronto's favor for him to go to the open market because
Yeah.
maybe
It's
there
not as hot
isn't
as he
quite the
thinks.
competition that everyone thought there would be.
Could be.
Now, dangerous game to play, but if you're Rogers Communication and you blink away $100 million in your sleep,
Hmm.
right? Where it's what's $100 million when you're a mega
Yeah.
communication conglomerate. Maybe the open market's the way to go. Let Vladdy go see what he's worth. If there's people out there that think he's worth 600 million, I think the Jays can go to him and be like, listen, we match whatever
Yeah.
deal you get out there. And we're the team you're going to. Leverage us away, I guess. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah. That's probably how it's going to play out. I think if I was Vlad and Vlad's agency team, whatever, like even if Ross and Mark called us in for a meeting, if we went into the meeting saying, like, you and me are Vlad and his agent, we're like, okay, 450 is what I want. That's the number I want, right? I'd be happy with 450. And then we sit down in the meeting, we let them go first, and they go, we'll offer you 460. I'm not saying, oh, cool, and signing it. I'm going, oh, they're willing to pay more than I thought they were. That's a good sign for free agency next year. That's like literally all I'm doing. I'm not going to be like, oh, I got as much as I wanted. Now I'm signing. I'm still just being like, that's a great sign for 10 months from now, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just, I don't think there's a way to just like reason our way out of this. Like, we can't just
Mm-hmm.
throw logic at numbers and be like, well, here's a justification and this is a growth on this projection and relative to this guy and here's a comparable. Like, I just think you can't reason somebody out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into. And it's all
Now,
emotion and vibe and speculation is how we got to this spot. So
a hundred
logic isn't going
percent.
to get us out of it.
Now, with all of that said, Adam, there was a report by Carlos Bayarga. Hey, said it right, everybody. Get it
Hey.
down. There we go. I got one. So Carlos Bayarga said that now that Santander is signed, it proves to Vladdy that this team wants to win long term, and he's far
Mhm.
more on board with signing a long term deal. And don't be surprised if in the next week or two, Vladdy signs for 450 to $500 million. So,
Sure.
I
Sure.
mean,
Yeah. I mean,
for how right Carlos is, what is it? 1 out of 10 times he gets one. I mean, as Jays fans, we can hope maybe this is one of those, one of those connects.
I'm just beyond expectations. I don't think I can be surprised anymore. Like, I just
Mhm.
don't think if he signed tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised. If he didn't,
Yeah.
I also wouldn't be surprised. Like, there's just, it's such a unclear situation. Like, there's no expectations. I'd be surprised if Bo signed this week, not Vlad.
Yeah. There you go. There's one that would shock everyone.
Yeah.
Going to YouTube, Rudy Roberts says Clement had a higher wins above replacement than Alonso last year, and Alonso played 162 dot dot dot. I think this is a reference to you and I saying we're just into anyone playing third base that isn't Ernie Clement, and we didn't mean that as an insult to Ernie Clement. Listen, defensive war is always going to muddy the waters. I love Ernie Clement. Defensively, this kid can play anywhere on the infield and has been spectacular when he's had to fill in full time at places like shortstop for Bo Bichette, at places like third. And you know what? He's my Kevin Biggio in 2025, bar none. Love Ernie. Earn dog for life. Now, I don't give a shit about the war. I would rather Pete Alonso hitting fifth in this lineup than Ernie Clement and forcing Vladdy to play some more third base than he did last year. I think that the power is what we need right now. And you put Ernie Clement at third base for 162 games. He's gonna hit 15 bombs, folks, and it's gonna be fun. He's a good kid. That's my thought,
Yeah.
anyways. I feel like this team needs another bopper, and I think that Alex Bregman or Pete Alonso is going to do far more for this team than Ernie Clement, despite the war numbers. And you know what? Kudos to Ernie Clement for showing the value that he has because he's kind of forced his way into being an everyday Major League Baseball player, even if he's the 26th man, only getting 120, 130 reps a season, right? So, you know
Hmm.
what? Good on Ernie. He's definitely made sure that if the Jays are going to move on from him, there's a team out there that's picking him up. And that is awesome. I really wish to emphasize that when I say I don't want Ernie playing third base this year, it isn't a slag on him. It's looking at the other teams in this American League East, realizing the options on the free agent market, and knowing that that a upgrade offensively at third would do the world for this team. Anything to add, bud?
Just broad strokes that, yeah, war is a broken metric. Um,
It has
because
value. It's just
yeah,
it's not the be all end all.
the positional adjustment also skews things. Um, I think third base positionally gets a like a an adjustment of plus 2.5, like weighted runs or however that works. And first base is like minus 12.5. And I think 10 runs is what they calculate as being worth one win above replacement. So just everything else aside, just based on first versus third, you're getting a full game and a half war bump over the course of a season just for playing third base.
War is an interesting stat as well because the one that always stands out to me is Kyle Schwarber in 2023. He finished the year with a zero point 0.6 war. He hit 47 home runs that
Yeah,
year.
like
Like you're gonna, I don't care how you spin it. You cannot convince me that 47
agreed.
dingers in a year is worth half of a game win above replacement. I don't care how bad he is in left field, and he's bad.
Yeah. No, truly. It's yeah, like these are the edge case scenarios that break stats though, right? Like for stats like this it's like when you step on a bathroom scale in your house, right? It has a range of accuracy, right? Like there is it could be very accurate between 100 pounds and between 300 pounds, right? But as soon as the springs are stretching too much or doesn't have the sensitivity, like if you put your dog on the bathroom scale, you
Mhm.
might have a 30-pound dog, but it's going to register as like 11 pounds. That doesn't mean you have an 11-pound dog, right? It just means we're outside of that calibration zone that it was intended for. In the
Right.
same way, if you park your car on a bathroom scale and it's going to say 350, right? Like your car doesn't
Yeah.
weigh 350 pounds. It's just, that's not what it was designed for. And that's kind of like where these metrics, like a lot of the defensive ones and war and stuff like this, right? It's not designed for a bad defensive fielder in an undervalued position who has elite power, right? Like it's not meant to measure and capture the value of a guy like that, right? It is meant to capture the majority of most people in the middle, right? It's like the Shohei Ohtani war
Mhm.
metrics and stuff. It's not meant to measure a guy who does both, but also you have to have a 6-man rotation instead of a 5-man rotation. And how does that get skewed? And like that, it doesn't capture all those things. And that's okay. Like again, like you said, it's a good starting off point, but that's about it. So but it is like a funny, quirky thing to note that Ernie Clement had a higher WAR than Pete Alonso. Just like objectively, that's silly and that's funny.
Yes. Um, Moving along, this is also from YouTube. Willard Tall Cree. Like it. Willard
Nice.
Tall Cree says, "Why is Adam always sour?" Sometimes I just close the channel on YouTube and watch another Jays stream. I'm
That's
also
fair.
from High Level Alberta, and Scott and Adam might know where that is. I do know where High Level is. I worked as the morning show host at YL Country up in High Level for 9 months back in 2005. I actually did. This is a very specific thing for anyone from high level listening, and I guarantee if you were there in 2005, you remember this. So we did. I used to need to go down to Peace River because it was a satellite station. So basically, you're just running the Peace River station through the channel until I get in the morning, and then I go live locally, and I can do the whole thing there or whatever. And so I had approached my boss in high level, uh, in Peace River, sorry, about doing a promotion. And I was like, we were drinking, and he's like, do you have any promotion ideas? I'm like, I've got a non-promotion idea if you want. He's like, I don't know what that means. He's like, I'm like, it's a fake promotion. What if we did this? What if we teased for like a month and made a huge deal out of it that the morning show host Don Jennings in Peace River and myself in High Level are going to camp on the roof of the radio station in February for 2 weeks, breaking some sort of Arctic record for camping on a roof in a tent type of
Oh
thing.
God.
And yeah, he loved it, which I still looking back, I'm like, I can't believe I got to do this pretend promotion. So we pumped it up the whole time. And then the day of the promotion, they had unite. So the engineer got involved so that he could put together the two. So there's two radio stations in Peace River, Kicks 106 and YL Country. So they combine the feeds on that and the feed in High Level, giving the biggest radius this radio station had ever had for us to pretend to go on the roof. Dawn goes up and he's like, "Where's Scott?" And I'm like, "Actually, you know what? I'm out. I'm not staying for 2 weeks on a roof. That's crazy." And then it just goes dead. It goes dead, and everyone else, all the other DJs are like, "We can't get Scott. We can't get Scott. Where's Dawn?" Like, we'll let everyone know what's going on. To need to come back 15 minutes later and be like, "Okay, so yeah, this is officially was a joke. None of this is real." And the other DJs were furious, by the way, because we didn't
Furious.
let them
Oh
in on it.
yeah.
Like it was just like an
The
inside joke
blinds.
the whole
Oh my
time. But
God.
the salesman was so
Uh,
mad, dude, because there were so many advertisers who were
ad
coming to him who
spots.
wanted to promote it, and he was
Yeah.
like, "I can't let you promote it because this isn't a thing." And they're like, "What do you mean it's not a thing?" I'm like,
That's amazing.
anyways,
That high level story, much better than my high level story. I was working in Red Deer, well, out of Red Deer, but I was working in the oil field, and we got a job in high level, just outside of high level. Like we go all over the province, mostly around central Alberta, but the odd time, like our Grand Prairie office or whatever would be like short of trucks, so we get sent up there or whatever, right? And we got a call came in for a frac just outside of high level, and he said we don't have the like lease coordinates yet, but like get going, and we'll send them to you like as soon as we get them. So we take off, hit the road. About 45 minutes into our drive, I get a call from the dispatcher asking why we're driving south. And I mixed up high level and high
and
river. I was like, we're going like just past Calgary, right? They're like,
oh
no.
man.
So I was like 2 hours late for the frac. So the whole frac had to shut down and wait for it. Like, you can't wait until the whatever, we're the safety crew and fire truck and stuff. So it was like, yeah, pretty dumb, pretty dumb. I didn't even fucking punch high level. They told me high level. I didn't punch it into anything. I
Yeah.
just was like, yeah, High River. I've been there several times for work. Like, so just hit the road and yeah. So that's my high level story.
For those who haven't been to High Level, little trivia for you. They lovingly refer to it in High Level as Little Vegas because all of the hotels there are named after Vegas hotels. So there's like the Stardust and the Frontier and the Flamingo,
Hey,
and it's
nice.
kind of a fun little tidbit there.
Why does every little oil town in Alberta feel the need to do that? Like, what's the other one? Fox Creek.
Oh yeah, Fox Vegas. They love to call
Fox Vegas.
themselves
Like
that too.
everything's
Yeah.
just something Vegas, right?
It's
Uh,
it's self-deprecation and I love it.
it's
It's just
it's
like,
great.
yeah, we're just a little shithole here. Let's put Vegas on the back of it.
The new season of Shoresy, I think, is out this week, and
Nice.
it's the off season for this one. and they're talking about the summer in Sudbury as what do they refer to it as? Sud Vegas.
Ah, okay,
makes
yeah.
makes me laugh every time. So,
Yeah.
yeah, good
All
stuff.
right, let's get to the last couple of mailbag questions here. This one's from Janet D on YouTube. She goes, "Can I throw some cold water on this? Santander is
Jesus.
not the same player as Springer. Santander has been a late bloomer as well as pretty durable when Springer has been injury prone and constantly battling injuries when he was with Houston and it caught up with him. Just because a guy passes 30 does not mean he is going to fall apart as a player. 18.5 mil is a good AAV for a guy who can pop you 35 or so home runs, and they can be out after only 3 years due to the opt out. The Jays could get Montgomery for a used. The Jays could get Montgomery for a used bat and bag of balls currently. Maybe they could. Jordan Montgomery brought that up. Yeah,
Can
I agree
I
with you, Janet. I mean,
can
you
I
make
just reject the premise of the opt out being like a boon for us? Of like, well, hopefully he just doesn't want to play here. Like, hopefully he just
I
doesn't
think
want to
I
do the rest of the contract.
no, I agree with you, Adam. I think that be, for me, you know why I like the opt out? Because I still am not convinced that this team isn't rebuilding in a year, right? Like I really hope
Yeah,
against hope that that is not the case. And it's one of the reasons why I was excited about the Santander deal is that, you know what, there was some term to it, but it's not an immovable contract.
yeah, it's
And
not.
if
No, it's not.
Santander's playing well to get 2 years, 28 million at 33 years, it's probably pretty doable. So, all right, moving on. This is from Eshep. He goes, the direction was clear to get the biggest fish. They tried all year since Otani. I think this is concerning. I was like, my most frustrating thing about this front office is that they don't feel like they have a direction and they keep going in whatever direction they can get going on.
Mhm.
So he goes, this direction was clear to get the biggest fish. They tried all year since Otani. The secondary market didn't really go anywhere without them, which is true. The guys with preference and suitors signed, and like always and expected, we are here working with the traditionally viable options available to us. They didn't let anyone get away who wouldn't rather be somewhere else. I mean, truth. They tried really hard on Corbin Burns. The reports are that they offered it more, and he went to Arizona because he wanted to be home.
Yeah, I'm just bitter, Scott. Trying to be optimistic. It's tough right now.
You're not alone. You're not alone.
Yeah.
And you know what? Moves help bitterness. I am far less bitter now than I was 48 hours ago before the Santander signing. I was less bitter then than I was a month earlier before the Jeff Hoffman signing. And
Yeah.
you know what? They just need to keep going. They got to keep filling holes. And I'll say it again. This is how we ended yesterday's show, and I'll end it again the same way here. Listen, this bullpen, I think it's far better than it was last year. They've got four high leverage relievers at the back end of that pen, if all goes well. Jeff Hoffman, Eric Swanson hopefully has a rebound. Chad
Mhm.
Green hopefully looks as good, if not better, than he did last year. And hopefully Jimmy Garcia comes in and does what he did with the Blue Jays, not the Mariners last year. I think that this lineup is already better than it was last year, just having a cleanup hitter. They need another pitcher and they probably need another bat. But you know what? Is this a better team than it was at the end of 2024? Absolutely.
Yeah, you're right. It is better. The Roki Sasaki signing with the Dodgers feels like it happened very recently, but it actually happened last year when Shohei signed with the Dodgers. And I really feel like that was like when they signed Shohei, that was the final straw in them also getting a guy like Sasaki. Like I just think that sometimes it moves the needle so much in such a way on a player's decision. Like, I
Yeah,
don't
I
think
mean,
it's
I hate to think
I
about that, but you're right. Like, had the Jays actually landed Otani, we'd probably be
probably what
sitting
I
here excited about Sasaki.
right. Right. So I don't think Santander and Hoffman seal the deal for Vladdy in that way. But
It helps.
it has to move the needle. So in that regard, if it moves the needle 15%, on at least showing Vladdy that, like, hey, we are not just standing pat and hoping for positive regression.
Mhm.
Like, we're not just banking on that. We are still actively making moves. We want to compete. We don't want to just be a 82 win team. Like, we're trying. That's got to be worth something. And again,
Mhm.
I don't think that that's like the be all end all of him signing here long term, but those kind of moves have larger ramifications than just the player of Santander and just of Hoffman, right? So
Yeah.
again, same thing with Flaherty. Like, if we go out and get Flaherty and we overpay for him and whatever, maybe it's going to be like, overspent, but I'm okay with that if it increases the chances that Vladdy's like, all right, well, Toronto, they're not afraid to spend money. I want to fucking win, and they're going to put a championship team around me, like,
Or they're gonna try.
they're going to try. So yeah, I don't know. I'm good with it. I'm good with us making every effort to put a team around Vladdy to make Toronto an appealing place for him to sign.
Hmm. There you have it, folks. This is Mailbag. Appreciate all of your interaction throughout the week. Apologies if you were frustrated with how negative you felt we were yesterday. We honestly are very excited to have Anthony Santander. I love that this team finally has a
Santander
switch
clause, that's what
hitter.
we're calling him.
Yeah, Santander Claus. That's right. And old Tony Barrels hopefully can hammer 30 plus home runs for this team too, because dear God, having a cleanup hitter is going to make this season so much easier to watch. Go ahead and drop your comments below. We'll circle back next week on this. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate it. Hit that like button and subscribe and take care of yourselves. We will see you Friday. Remember to keep an eye out for the interviews coming out. We've got Jack Jolliola from John Boy. We've got Alan Roden. We've got Riley Torada. We've got Josh Kasevich and Chad Dallas all coming up along with Rob Wong. Keep an eye out. Cheers, gang.